In a world where hustle culture collides with wellness mornings and workplace demands keep evolving, how do we stay sharp without burning out? How do we navigate the endless stream of wellness trends while actually getting results? This is the Work and Wellness Podcast, and I'm your host, Angela Davies. Drawing from my own journey of wins, stumbles, and honest revelations, I'll be bringing you raw, unfiltered conversations with experts and inspiring guests who've been there, lived it, and found a better way. Together, we'll cut through the noise and workshop what it really means to be well in today's workplace. No more choosing between success and sanity. No more sacrificing health for achievement. Whether you're struggling with burnout, searching for purpose, or simply ready to work smarter, not harder, you're in the right place. This is real talk about real solutions for real people. Let's get into it. Hello friends, welcome to the show. Today I am joined by Monica Kade. Monica is a highly sought after brand messaging strategist and copywriting expert with 14 years of experience shaping the voices of global brands such as L'Oreal, Visa, QBE and Mitsubishi, all brands I'm sure we are all familiar with. Her strategic messaging has generated millions in revenue for her clients, with her signature service being the personal brand blueprint, which positions clients as go-to leaders in their field in just 4 weeks. As the host of the Leaders Lane podcast, Monica's interviewed incredible guests such as Lewis Howes, Guy Kawasaki, famous from Apple and Canva, and Bethany Hamilton, to name a few. And through this podcast, Monica champions creating a life and business with depth and impact. And I'm excited to dive in and chat to Monica today. Welcome, Monica.
Thanks, Ange. It's so nice to sit down with you.
Good to have you. I want to jump straight in with you. How did you transition from working with the large brands that we just mentioned through to helping individuals create a powerful personal brand?
Yeah, sure. So while I still sort of work with both. So I do work with the bigger brands, but it predominantly started shifting last year. So last year I noticed I had a lot of people coming to me saying, whether they were business owners or whether they were within corporate, and they started saying like, hey, I want to develop my personal brand. So it was, and it's something quite close to my heart. Like in the way that I work with people, I think my gift is being able to draw out the person's essence, and communicate that into words. So that's my gift. And so when someone comes to me and says, hey, I want to build my personal brand, it's like, okay, great, let's do this. Like it's a real joy to be able to do that for someone. So that's sort of how it eventuated. And so more and more, that's what I'm noticing. People are just coming to me to support them in getting that personal brand out there, because it is what I've noticed in what they're telling me is that it's scary and they don't know what to say about themselves. And there's that transition period where you go from like, how do I take who I am, this complex human being, put it into brand messaging and then put it out into the world so it resonates with the people that I want to connect with.
Yeah, and it's so interesting you say that, because I think when I was in my corporate career, there wasn't actually a lot of talk about personal brand. It was there, I think, people had a personal brand, but we weren't calling it that. It was really left up to the big corporates to talk about the brand. When I was in corporate particularly, I felt like I took on the brand of the business I was working for rather than thinking too much about my personal brand. Why do you think it's become so important now?
I think the whole landscape has shifted, where it used to be where it was the corporate, the company, they're the hero of the story. But I've noticed more and more people want to know the people behind the business or the brand. And I think companies are also realizing the power of their leaders and their teams, that they can actually create value by having a voice. It doesn't mean that they need to go out and create this huge personal brand that's like famous, for example, but having someone within a corporate setting, they can still have a voice and a brand, and that can help attract people at their level of operations, for example. It might bring in new clientele for people in the C-suite level. It's really important because they are sort of client facing, they are at the top, they are going to meetings. And I think you just get to know people on a different level, like whether they're still talking about professional things, they're bringing part of themselves and their perspective and their thoughts and their insights on their leadership journey and coupling that with the company's, services or vision, things like that.
Yeah, and I think it's important too, just hearing you say that, we are in a very low unemployment environment, and there's certainly difficulty in finding talent. I was just at an economic breakfast and they were saying that. And I think having a strong personal brand, if you're a leader, is really important to attracting great talent as well. Are you hearing people saying that when they're working with you?
Yeah, definitely. So recently I worked with another entrepreneur and he saw the value of it because it's not just about him, it's about who he attracts into his companies. So people want to work with great companies. And how are they going to find out that company is great? It's like the people within are a really good reflection of what the company is like. So I think when you care about the message that you're putting out, then you're also going to attract the right sort of talent, the right person for your organization, because everyone's a different fit. And so having strong messaging and then having a strong personal brand, they work synergistically. I don't even actually think that's a word, in synergy.
Yeah, we'll use it today.
The copywriter just makes up words. But in synergy, then you can have the right talent, which then affects how the company operates, right? From a performance level, from a leadership space, but then also a revenue perspective. When you've got the right fit person, then everything's sort of humming, all the little pieces work really well together.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the way you work with individuals is through the personal brand blueprint. Can you tell me a little bit more about how that helps people to develop their personal brands and then possibly even elevate their leadership or presence within an organization?
Yeah, definitely. So it's a proven framework where I position, package, and promote their brand. And we do that through strategic key signature messaging. And then what that is then packaged up at. So it involves essentially some brand identity work. It involves some messaging and positioning, the strategy to execute. So how they, then go out into the world once they've got all their messaging. And then I also include like a consulting component as added support in case they have questions after we create this brand for them. So it's like with any sort of brand that you're developing, you've got to work out who you are, what your message is, why am I doing this? And then you've got to have a unique way of saying what you do that resonates with your audience. So I've integrated this for individuals because I have found that when I sit down with someone, they have a very unique way of doing the thing that they do. And it's not about like revolutionizing what you do. You could, you and I could have the same role, but we both would do it differently. We'd both bring our own unique edge to it. And in sitting down with people for the last however many 14 years, it's easy for me to spot it. They don't see it. But once we do the work together and I reflect it back, they're like, oh my God. And I'm like, it's you. This is your thing. I've just found a way to draw it out, package it up so we can put it out into the marketplace.
I think that's so important what you said there, Monica, because I often think people feel like they have to be, doing all these crazy different things to stand out in. I think with social media and LinkedIn can feel saturated, even if you're in corporate, it just feels, maybe it's because we're shown what we see in our realm, but it feels like everything's saturated. So I love that you're talking about just showing a person's essence, and that's what they bring is their differentiator to something, not necessarily that they have to be doing something different, but just what is it that they bring uniquely to what they're doing. So I think that's so valuable to share. Talking back to some of the bigger businesses that you've worked with, what is some of the most surprising things that you've learned from working with brands like L'Oreal or Visa?
Yeah, I find that everyone, I don't know if it's surprising, but it's very interesting. So people, even at the highest levels, they need support and they also have doubts. So I found that super fascinating that I would have the most successful person within an organization that, you know, the CEO, and maybe we would look at them and be like, oh, they're so accomplished, they're great leaders, all this stuff. They still go through that same process of like, I don't know if I've got anything worthwhile to say. I don't really know how to talk about myself. And that was really eye-opening for me, because I'm sitting here very objectively going, wow, look at everything you've accomplished.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily, not everyone, but not all of them are like, yeah, I've done this and I'd like to now elevate to the next level. Can you help me?
Yeah, that's such a fascinating thing to hear, because I think we can often think we're the only ones who think that maybe that we have self-doubt, or that we think we're the only ones who sort of feel like, what am I doing here? What value do I have to add, you know? And I think it's just our inner critic. You know, our brains do this to us naturally. It's always getting us to challenge ourselves in that inner critic. And I think it's comforting and a relief, maybe is the way to put it, to hear that even people at the most senior level who you would look at objectively and think are so accomplished think this way as well.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's natural. And I think it's the more we can go, oh, okay, I feel this way, but it doesn't mean it's who we are. You know, like we all have moments. I actually just had another podcast conversation with someone I was recording for my podcast, and we were talking about imposter syndrome and how that affects us. And it's like, she was saying how the further you go along in your career, the higher you get, or the more you stretch your comfort zone, the more that sort of feeling appears, because you're pushing the edge of your comfort zone. So she suggested, like, if you can reframe it as a positive thing, because it's like, oh, hey, yeah, I'm feeling this discomfort, but it's not what I think it is. It's that I'm just going to the next level of my expertise, my performance, my business, my role, that sort of an approach.
It's interesting you say that, because I was having a chat with a friend the other day, and I actually said imposter syndrome needs a rebrand. It's not, I hate even the term almost, because I feel like it's not even that you're an imposter. It's just you're doing something new. You know, we're just giving something a crack and doing something new. And so, of course, you're going to feel a little bit out of your depth. And I'll never forget when I was working for one of the big banks, the CEO said to us as leaders, if you feel like you're in a warm bath, you're in the wrong place. You need to be feeling a bit of discomfort. And I actually think that is kind of just what imposter syndrome is. It's when, to your point, you said you're pushing that edge. So I feel like we need to get rid of that term.
Yeah, I don't particularly love it. I don't particularly necessarily use it either. I just feel like, again, because it's a label thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, if it resonates with you and you relate to it and it helps you, then by all means, I'm not saying it's invalid, but I don't like the word imposter myself. I feel like it's a bit inauthentic. Like you're saying, like, you're not in the right place and you're not being yourself, to me at least. I don't think that. I think it's just more of an evolution of who we're growing into or who we're becoming.
It's a really good reframe for that. You yourself have had a really impressive career prior to sort of, you know, running your own business, etc. Have you ever experienced high stress work environments or burnout? And if you have, how did you deal with that?
Sure, I definitely have. And often it's even been in my own business. There are periods where they've been exceptionally busy and I've got multiple projects on the go, or I've taken on more than I can chew at a time. And so I'm working later hours, I'm working more intensively. Usually for me, it means if I'm starting to burn out, it just means that I've been doing long hours at a very high intensity. So that's when I notice I get to the weekend and I'm like, I'm spent, like there's nothing left. So I actually have a little strategy for myself, which I developed because as well, my work is I have interactions with clients, but it's quite minimal, and writing is a very solo profession. So I noticed that I mentally was starting to suffer because I wasn't having that connection that you get from being in a team. And I remember I was waking up too many times thinking, like, focusing on all the things that weren't going well in my life when there was plenty that were going well. But it was this perpetual mental cycle that I was in. And I was like, okay, I can't deal with this. Like, I don't want to be like this. This is not my natural state. Like, I'm usually a fairly positive person and, you know, I can go with challenges when they present, but I was struggling. So I thought, okay, I'm going to write a list. What are the things that I need to go through to make sure that I have done before I say to myself, oh, this is a really bad day, I'm struggling. So on my list was go for a walk. Have I drank enough water? Have I spoken to someone? Actually, no, it was have I connected to someone? And I made the differentiation of it's not just speaking to someone, it's having a meaningful connection. So whether that was with my nephews, with a family member, a friend, I needed that sort of level of connection. And there was also like, have I eaten well? Have I got enough sleep? And I know they sound so simple and so basic, and you think like, yeah, they're everyday things. But when you're in a dark place or a place where you're struggling, sometimes you've got to go back to the basics and go, okay, well, have I done all these things? And often it started, and it was funny because it started working, because I noticed I would go to that list when I caught myself in this negative headspace and was like, okay, have I gone for a walk? Yes. Have I drank enough water? No, I've had lots of coffee. How about I go drink some water, then see how I feel? So it was just a really nice way to manage that high stress environment for myself. And in terms of workload, that's up to me. Like I go through those periods. I don't really do that often, but it's having that reference point for myself where I can go, okay, do you remember when you did that? That wasn't working. So just be mindful in terms of how you structure your time and the types of projects you take on.
That's such a practical framework that you share, Monica. And it's interesting you say they seem simple. They're actually, you mentioned all the things you mentioned are the 5 things that science says are the most important things for our mental health and well-being. So
there you go.
You're doing it naturally anyways. And those are the things that I actually teach a lot of different people, and there's a lot of science to back it up. So you're doing it anyway. And I think that's a really great way to frame it, in that if I'm thinking I'm not feeling great or I'm feeling overwhelmed, let me check in on my well-being first and see if there's anything that I can actually do before I then say I'm burnt out, because maybe it's those things that you need to tweak. So that's a really practical framework that I think the listeners will be able to implement. As someone who works with a lot of leaders, whether it's a leader because they're an entrepreneur or a leader in a business, how can strong brand messaging help to improve team dynamics and well-being? And I know it might sound like a bit of a funny mix, but I do really feel like, for me, the reason I asked you this question is because I think messaging creates purpose, and purpose is linked to well-being from my perspective. But I'd be interested to hear your perspective around branding and its link to team dynamics and well-being.
So it's interesting that you mentioned purpose, because that's one of like the fundamental things that I do with my clients at the very beginning. It's like, what is the purpose of this? And I think it plays into the ripple effect that messaging has. So we touched on it a bit before, it's on a company scale. The type of messaging you put out is the type of talent that you're going to be attracting, but also the types of customers that you're going to be attracting. So it sort of sets the stage on a global level like that. And then in terms of the team, then you've got, you've attracted certain people into the company, then they're also going to be working together. So, and how they interact. And then if it's within a company setting, there's also people that you're communicating with people over email, you're communicating with people across like brand communications, whether it's social media, newsletters, it depends what the company does. But all of that is influence. So like when you have a coherent message that everyone sort of uses and draws on, then everyone goes out into the marketplace or talks to their customers in the same way. It's the same message. So the audience then isn't confused. So it's more, I guess, I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I feel like it creates a cohesion in how people function and operate as a team, because everyone knows what their role is or the purpose of what they're doing is, because people get lost or they don't feel connected to their work. It's usually because they've lost sight of like, why am I even doing this? Or why do I even need to do this? But that's up to the people, the leaders, to communicate, well, this is why we're doing it. I actually had a call yesterday with a client and I did an interview for one of their staff, and she was a customer service assistant. And she was very clear on her role. And she also then used her role to support the other people she interacted with who were not having a great day at work. She was like, but remember, this is why we're doing this. Or when she was onboarding new staff, she would say, this is the procedure and this is why we're doing it, so you understand. And I thought that was so brilliant, because that's like, if everyone knows their purpose, their why, then I just think it makes it more enjoyable. It's fun. You're there for the right reasons. And I guess that just ties back into the brand message.
Absolutely. And it impacts well-being too, because typically team well-being starts to diminish when people are not understanding why they're doing what they're doing, and there's an incongruence in either values or purpose between what they're doing and not knowing why. So I think it's inherently connected. How can personal branding on an individual level help someone progress or elevate their career?
Yeah. So if it's in a corporate setting, let's talk about that one first. I feel like it's a really great opportunity to show more of who you are, the type of person that you are, how you might lead. So if you're looking for a promotion, or you're looking to move into another role within the company, or maybe you're looking to have another role completely, when you have a personal brand, nowadays, and I've worked with recruiters, they say, I go straight to their LinkedIn. Like, the CV has a small bit of importance, but most people go to their LinkedIn. Do they have a profile? If they don't, that's immediately like a will pass type thing. So I thought that was fascinating. So a LinkedIn presence is huge, and how much of a personal brand you build, I guess, depends on how much time the person wants to invest into that. You know, do you want to be a thought leader where you are writing articles, posting posts about certain topics within your role or your expertise? So, you know, there are different levels of having a personal brand, but ultimately in a corporate setting, it is important for promotions, for getting that next level of training even, or maybe you want to stay within your role, but you want to, I know that they have like leadership programs or operations, or like different masterminds and different things like that. It just gives you that opportunity to be in your role and open new doors for yourself that you might not have known existed if you had only just shown up, you know, to work and done your job.
Yeah, I think that's really important from a corporate perspective, and something that I reflect back on in my career. I used to be really steadfast in saying my work should speak for itself. And I don't know if you've ever had any of your clients say that to you. I was just fiercely against self-promotion because I think I had seen it done really poorly. And I looked at sort of personal brand as self-promotion. What's your thoughts on that? And I don't know if people come to you and say that. I obviously think differently about it now because I have my own business, and you know, it's about the mission and the outcome. But back then I just used to be so stubborn about it and be like, nah, all my work will speak for itself.
I love that. I haven't had someone come to me saying that per se, but I do get people, like, they cringe. They're like, oh, I just don't want to talk about myself. And like, I don't know what to say, like that sort of thing, which is almost on the flip side, similar to what you're saying. They're kind of all together. But I don't know, in my perspective, I think putting yourself out there, it depends what you want. If you are looking to open doors, attract new opportunities, build a business, I think a personal brand can drive all those opportunities for you. So I guess this conversation is for those people that are looking to do that, because it does do that. And the reservations about whether my work will speak for itself, or I don't want to put myself out there because I'm not confident, I don't have clarity around what I'm saying, or I'm not sure even what to put out there. I think everyone has something to bring to the table. And I often say, like, if you have something that you want to share and you're not sharing it, and there is someone in the world that's going, I wish there was someone that could help me with this thing, and you have it and you don't do it, either one, someone else is going to find them and work with them, which could have been you, And the other thing, I just think you're doing yourself a disservice because I think we all have something to contribute to the world. And whether that's on a global scale or a micro scale on a community level, just one to one, like I just think someone's perspective can change someone's life or their day or, you know, their week. So I'm a big advocate for putting yourself out there. And the work, I think you can be an expert at what you do and have a high standard of work, but it's also about positioning yourself and how do you communicate that. Like if I just met you, I might think, oh, great, Ange has accomplished so much and she's doing great work in the world. But then what's next? Like, how do I know you're for me? And I would probably go to read more of your content or watch more of your content. And that's when I would start to form an idea of like, oh yeah, Ange is the person I want to work with. She understands my problem. I can see that she's gotten transformations for her clients. That's what I need. I'm going to reach out to her.
It sounds like even taking the ego and the self out of it and thinking about what your bigger mission and purpose is can really help with taking that sort of, I guess, worry out of it, you know, because what you're saying is, hold on a minute, there's people out there who need to hear from you. So forget about feeling weird about doing it. You've got a service to others to show them what you're doing.
Yeah. And I just want to be clear, like that is for someone who wants to build a personal brand. Not everyone wants to, and that's completely okay. You don't have to. But if you do want to, then naturally it's overcoming whatever reservation you have around putting yourself out there. And for everyone, it's going to be different, but it is possible. And I think when you start focusing on what have I got to give rather than the noise in our minds that can distract us from the thing, eventually it becomes like a little quiet voice and you don't need to listen to it.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you might cringe. Like sometimes, I think recently I felt it and it was strange because I don't feel it very often, but I was like, oh, I don't know if I should put that out there. Maybe it was a little bit controversial or something. And then I went, no, what's the worst thing that can possibly happen? Like someone comments or doesn't like it, and the worst thing is usually how I'm going to feel. And then it's up to me to sit with that feeling and process it and move on from it. But I'm not going to let that stop me from putting something out there that could change someone's life. That's my approach to it.
It's a great approach to have. How do you stay aligned with your own personal brand? And what helps keep you motivated to help others do the same?
For me, it's about knowing when to say yes and when to say no. I'm very much of a gut instinct person. So if something feels off, it's usually a no. And sometimes, like it happened the other day recently, I just felt someone requested something from me and I just got this strange feeling. It just felt off. There was no reason why. Like on the surface, there was no reason. And I reached out to a friend and I was like, I'm just feeling a bit off about this. And they just went, trust your gut, which is what I normally do. But I needed that reinforcement on that day because it didn't make sense. But I just was like, so I declined with the person and I felt good about it. But it's for me knowing about what to say yes to and what's not for me, you know. And I think sometimes, particularly when you're a business owner, sometimes you just want to say yes to every opportunity. But I have found that I've learned the hard way with those things. Sometimes I have said yes in the past and it's a misaligned client, or I've said yes and it ends up being a terrible project. And then at the end of it, I realized, I was like, yeah, but I had that thought at the beginning, like, I'm not sure about this. And I did it anyway.
How do you cultivate that ability to listen to your gut? I know we're going a little bit off track here, but I actually think it's really important. And we work in a world, I think, that moves so quickly that many of us don't take the time to sit and listen, or we don't listen to it. We just like are forging forward. And I think it's really important to take time for solitude and silence so that you can listen to your gut. How do you personally cultivate your ability to do that?
I've been I guess I've been cultivating it for quite some time now. Like I've always, since I was young, been very interested in my own like self-awareness and my own self-growth. So it's something since I was young that I feel like I've been doing. And I guess I was brought up in a household where my parents encouraged that as well. So I feel like from an early age, that's sort of been embedded in the way that I operate. But it's very much about taking space. Like, I agree with you 100%. I know I start making decisions when I haven't had that time. So if I've had a super busy period without quiet space, and so when I say quiet space for me, that looks like sitting down in the morning with my coffee, no distractions, and just not doing anything, looking outside the window, whatever, listening to the rain, whatever's happening in that moment, and contemplating, like if there's thoughts that come through, great. If not, then that's fine too. That's one way I do it. And walking, I find those two, and exercise, like for me, that's just who I am. Like, I need to move my body. I can't go a day without moving my body because I don't feel good. I don't feel aligned with myself. So that's purely how I cultivate it. And I think especially when you're going through a hard time in your life, it's always easier when life's just good, You might have a few challenges here and there, but when you're going through the thick of it, to sit down with yourself, that is really hard. Like, last year I went through that. No, of course not. Like, last year I went through a really rough year, and sitting down with myself was the most challenging thing. I'd distract myself from being there by myself. I'd take my phone, and I could see that it was a distraction, but I think you've got to also look at where you're at. Sometimes you're doing the best that you can, and at that period, sometimes distracting myself while having some space was the best way to move forward,
And it's awareness. You had a self-awareness of knowing that's what you were doing. I think where it becomes a problem is when you don't even realize that you are distracting yourself. It's not, we can't all be perfect and not distract ourselves with things. I did a podcast yesterday, and I was saying how I used to distract myself with shopping. That was like the way that I would just distract myself in corporate. But I didn't have an awareness of it back then, and I do now. So I think the self-awareness around it is really important.
Yeah. And like you said, for everyone, it's different. So sometimes someone listening to this might now, I think like a cool experiment, it can be like, just go through your day and notice like if there's anything that's on a to-do list that you should be doing or you want to do, but for some reason you're procrastinating over it. Just notice the go-tos. I know sometimes for me it might be going to wash up something, or clean up something that doesn't need to be cleaned right in this moment, like vacuuming, They're all minor distractions because I think they take you out from feeling what's really going on,
And it gives you a false sense of productivity at the same time, particularly if you're procrastinating because you think, well, I'm doing something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You've interviewed a lot of people on your podcast, Leaders Lane. What's been the best or most interesting piece of information or advice that you have had, particularly around either work or wellness?
There's been so many great interviews over the years. And like, I take away something from everyone. A recent one that I did do, and he's a business coach, and he grew a big marketing agency, and he said to me, often in business people are looking for the thing that works, and he said to me, Monica, everything works, you've just got to stick to one thing. And I thought that was quite profound because it's so easy, particularly as a business owner. You're like, oh, what's the next thing that's going to work for my business? And you could do that all day, every day. There's so many options available to you. But it was just a really nice, perspective to go, well, what's the thing that I feel that I'm drawn to or that resonates with me? And I think move towards that, because then you're already pursuing something that interests you, feels good to you, and you're not going to end up going down a rabbit hole where you're like, oh, this didn't work. It didn't work because it wasn't your thing. Like, find something that is your thing. And that's when I find they're the things that do work,
Yeah, and they're the things that have longevity too, because you're doing them because there's a genuine alignment. But I also really love what you said about how he shared everything works. You've just got to stick at it. And I think in this day and age, it's a very distracted, fast moving world. And I heard a little while ago the term information obesity. We were in an information obesity epidemic, that there's just so much information out there, but overnight successes are made over 10 years. And I think sometimes we may have lost a little bit of our patience as a society to keep sticking with things.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's so much information out there, and even I find it a bit overwhelming at times. It's like, and I'm very vigilant in terms of who and what I listen to, and particularly coming from a copywriting brand messaging background. I know all the tricks and things and phrasing that I'm not saying everyone does this, but there are people out there in the world that use sales copy to hook you in. That is the point of sales copy. And it can be genuine, but it can also be somewhat, I guess, people know when it's salesy per se, when you're feeling like you're being sold at. The difference for me is that I feel like everyone should sell their service, but don't sell at people, sell to them, invite them into the conversation. So, yeah, I guess I'm very skeptical and very mindful about what I choose to tune into, because I have the background that I do.
It's so important, I think, to be discerning in this age where we could just consume so much information 24/7. That can also lead to overwhelm, I think. And that leads me to my next question. You have a lot going on. You run your business, you've got your podcast, you're a brand strategist, a mentor. How do you look after your own well-being? Now, I know you shared your check-in with yourself, but how else do you focus on looking after your well-being when you do have such a full workload?
Yeah, honestly, I feel like it comes down to the basics of what I did mention before, and then also having fun, like doing things that I enjoy. So I'm also a pilot, and I love flying. So on the weekends, I'll go flying with my partner. And to me, I find that after I've been flying, like, I'm just a different person. Like, it lights me up. It's my jam. Like, it's the time of my life. I think play, have fun, or just don't do anything. Like, sit down, and if you like binge watching a show, like, do that. Or if it's like, I'm not saying doing that every day.
Yeah.
When you have your downtime, I find like, I think there is a time for us to just have those pleasurable moments doing the things that we like. Fun, pleasure, like, life is about that too. So it's not all about work and accomplishing and ticking things off the list. So I find for me, like, doing things that I enjoy. So whether that's flying or, going out for breakfast or, that sort of a thing, like, they definitely contribute to my well-being 100%.
First of all, I love that you're a pilot. That is just the coolest thing ever. I don't know, just so cool to go and recreationally fly a plane. Like, how wild and fun. But I also love that you mentioned fun, because I do think from a well-being perspective, fun is a really key ingredient. And sometimes I think we can get caught in the trap of taking life a little too seriously.
Yeah.
So I love that you shared that. And I think it's pertinent for all of us to take a moment and think what fun is to us, right? Like, you very clearly know what is fun to you. I wonder if everyone does. There was certainly a point in my life when I was so serious in my corporate career. I took everything so seriously. I definitely did not know what fun was for me, like, I just didn't know, I was like running marathons and going to the gym, and I was busy, but I didn't know what fun was. And so for me at that point, and I think it changes throughout our life. So I think it's important to ask that question of ourselves too.
Yeah, definitely. I think, like, as well, if people have kids or, whether it's nephews, your own children and things like that, I have my nephews, they bring an element of fun, like, because you do activities with them that you wouldn't necessarily do as an adult. Like, how often do you sit down and do some painting as an adult, unless you're an artist or so I just think finding, like, that curiosity that you have as a child or at different times in your life, I agree with you. I have had moments where I've been super serious too. And I'm like, Monica, you just need to like just chill out a bit. You're a bit taking life way too seriously. Go and do something and have fun.
Yeah.
And usually when you have fun, you know, the problems you think you have, all the challenges, all that stress that's pent up that you think that you don't have, you notice later because you've released it all because you just had a good time.
Yeah, it's so true. My husband and I love to like go to putt-putt or bowling or like just silly things. We don't have kids. So
Yeah.
like these adults in the bowling alley, but it is just fun and playful and you're not thinking about anything else. Like you said, you've released any stress that you're holding and you've sort of let go of anything too serious. So, because no one is good at bowling, you know, like you just got to do it.
It's funny because I was just about to say putt-putt. I love putt-putt so much. It's so good.
It's so good.
Yeah. We might have to have a friendly game of putt-putt one time.
Absolutely. I would love that. If there was one thing that you could leave the work and wellness audience with today, one piece of wisdom, advice, a thought bubble, what would that be, Monica?
I think if you can really just appreciate each moment. I'm noticing as I'm getting older, my life feels like it's going faster. And I'm really being intentional at the moment to enjoy every like bit. I'm sort of breaking down each moment into bits in my mind. So if I'm creating something for my business, like I'm really trying to be there for that and enjoy that. If I'm spending time with a friend, it's like enjoy that time with them. Yeah, I think that would be my thing for today.
Yeah. Presence. Being present in whatever you're doing. Thank you so much. You have shared so many wonderful insights today. I have loved chatting to you about personal brand and its impact on so many things, our career, our wellness, the way we show up in the world. And I think it's really powerful. So I'm going to put all of your details in the show notes. So if anyone's a little bit curious and wants to follow Monica on either Leader's Lane or as herself from a personal branding perspective, all of those details will be in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining me today, Monica. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It was lots of fun. Thanks, Ange.
Thanks for joining me on Work and Wellness. If today's episode resonated with you, remember, someone in your network might need to hear this too. Share it with a colleague or friend who could use these insights. I'd love to keep the conversation going, so find us on Instagram at Mind Your Grit, where we share daily tips and continue these discussions. And if you found value in today's episode, please take time to rate and review the show. It makes such a huge difference and helps other people discover conversations they might really need. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. Each week, we're building a community of people who believe that success and well-being go hand in hand. You can find the notes, resources, and links from today's episode at mindyourgrit.com. This is Work and Wellness with Angela Davies. Your work matters, your wellness matters, and this is where it all comes together. See you next week.